You ready to do this, Stu?
I am ready. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Stu Jones.
That's me.
We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 106. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Stu, it has been a crazy week. What is going on, man?
Well, I don't know. Nothing. It has been very not crazy for me, which I am quite welcome of. I officially started my 2-week Christmas-ish vacation where I'm really just doing a staycation and getting some stuff done around the house, but generally just trying not to think about anything important, do things as they come up, hang out a lot with Mo if I can. I was supposed to be going to Portland tomorrow to go see Metallica with Kate, but that was planned like February, March-ish. We knew there was a good chance that it may not come to fruition, but got all the tickets and stuff. But just work and everything else and bunched up and finances, it just didn't end up happening the way that I was hoping. But Kate is going to be going with her beau. They're hopefully going to have a fantastic time. I'm glad that she's able to go. That was really the big thing. I've seen Metallica a couple times. She hasn't, but that was kind of big on her list. They do put on a fantastic show. Don't care what you think about the music, but they're just phenomenal. And then, so had some hangout time. We had a dedicated daddy-daughter day with Mo on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. How did that go? Because you guys did the no tech day, right?
Yeah. Well, it turned out I had to do some work in the morning, so no tech was a little bit of a misnomer, but it was like from the moment we started to that, it was just, shared tech actually happened. But we went and saw Ralph Breaks the Internet.
What did you think?
I did not like the movie as much as the first one overall, though I still enjoyed it. And what you had said about the Disney princesses was on point, though, or the Disney stuff, I guess, right. Because there was also, I don't want to spoil anything, but there are other Disney properties that came into play.
Yes.
With some soundtrack and all. So that was fun. But no, we had a really good time. I did enjoy it. The parts that I loved more than the first movie. Overall, definitely still worth watching. Is a bit more serious than the first one, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And that threw me off a little bit, but overall, great time. And then I'll talk about this a little bit more, but we also sat and played Netflix for a while.
Played Netflix
for a while. I've got a Rebel Intelligence Spur. We'll talk about that a little bit more.
Is there some sort of new game where you like look at the things on the menu and then like play bingo or something? I'm missing. I don't know.
It's ratings bingo. Where are the thumbs up? No, there's they have Minecraft on there now, which is playable in a way that I'll go into more detail for. But it's quite a bit of content. It's not all out yet, and but we did that for several hours. Had a really good time there, and just hung out and was silly. We went to there's a new restaurant up the street. It used to be our favorite little Mexican dive restaurant.
I know the one you're talking about.
Now it's Chris's Cafe.
Yeah, what did you think of that?
It was actually really good. It's just a standard Greasy Spoon breakfast and lunch place, kind of nondescript, but they do it well. So,
see, we went a couple weeks back ago, and I missed the Mexican place because I did enjoy that place, and I kind of felt like you're saying, it was just kind of a Greasy Spoon breakfast place, and I kind of went, I was like, it didn't stay. I don't know. A place like that just opens up. It's like I can go get that anywhere. do something different that stands out just enough that makes me say, oh, hey, we could do this. This is slightly different, or they do a cut above the rest or something. And I felt like that place lacks that.
Well, I like a good breakfast joint, and I feel there are definite lack of that around here. There's like Seals, which is far side of Layton kind of thing. It has not been easy to go to a breakfast place that's not like IHOP.
Or Cracker Barrel.
I do not like Cracker Barrel.
Dude, my kids love that. They call it the pancake place.
Ugh.
The pancake restaurant, sorry.
But for a non-chain, I think they do it well enough. I'm glad there's a breakfast place that's close enough that actually me and Mo, maybe for a treat, I can, take her to breakfast before school or something.
Sure.
And then one other little thing, it's the dumbest thing in the world. I always get these like weird little kitchen appliances, like a quesadilla maker or like the sandwich maker thing, and I never do anything with them.
Okay.
Like ever. They sit like at the very top of the shelf above the plates and everything else. But I got an electric water kettle. And this thing is the most amazing device ever to grace my kitchen. It's like it hyperheats it up so it gets it to boiling in just a few minutes. Great for tea and coffee and all that kind of stuff. And Mo and I have been like experimenting with oatmeal in the morning. Like, I'm just doing like the quick oats thing and pour some water in it and then throw in some random fresh fruit or some honey and stuff. We're just like having fun coming up with different things to put in our oatmeal in the morning. I know it's still carbs, but it's still a heck of a lot healthier than doing the breakfast cereal bit. And she's even like one or two times when we were planning on eating cereal in the morning, she's asked for oatmeal. And so we've been doing, strawberries and honey and bananas and all that stuff. And it's just quick.
Kit Kats, Hershey Kisses, the usual stuff, right?
Nope. No, just kind of throwing it together and having kind of a hot meal for breakfast and a little more interactive, and it's been fun. And then we've been doing cocoa at night to offset the whole unhealthy thing.
Yeah, of course. When growing up, were you an oatmeal guy or were you like a cream of wheat guy?
Oh, I love cream of wheat. And malto meal.
Sugar?
And malto meal. With some butter, actually.
Butter with your cream of wheat?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just a pat of butter on there and it gets melty and all the melted butter through a house. So good.
I wasn't an oatmeal guy growing up. As a matter of fact, I pretty much hated oatmeal.
Yeah, me too.
But I liked cream of wheat with sugar. And then a number of years ago when I decided to try eating healthy the first time around, I forced myself to eat oatmeal in the morning because it's, even though it is some carbs, it is pretty good for you. And like it's, it's more complex kind of carbohydrates. So it takes a little longer to break down and whatnot. You can get some protein, a good source of fiber. Mm-hmm. And like, I literally have that every morning for breakfast now at work. 5 days a week, I have oatmeal.
Now, it's not those little oatmeal packets, is it?
It is the little Quaker oatmeal packets. However, I get the ones that are like the weight control that have like higher fiber content in them and like very, very, very low sugar. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. Now, granted, real oatmeal, like just straight oatmeal, it does taste better. It does have a little bit of a kind of an aftertaste a little bit, but I get the maple and brown sugar one, so it's kind of okay for me.
No, it's not. No, taste-wise, maybe. Yeah, that's all the sugars though that you're trying to avoid there.
You should really look it up. It's not that bad. It's like 160 calories total for one little packet.
I'm not worried about calories. It's the carbs.
It's not bad.
But but it's like
low.
We just do the instant, or not the instant, the quick pour the water in it, and then I microwave the fruit that we put in it for about 45 seconds, just so that or like maybe 15 seconds, I don't know, 45 seconds it would explode, but just so that the temperature matches it and doesn't cool the oatmeal all the way down, and it's been working out good. So, and I get a lot of use out of this.
I like that you just came up with a band name and you don't even know it. Exploding Fruit. I love that. Now taking the stage, Exploding Fruit, opening up for oatmeal.
On lead vocals, Banana Man. But no, so it's a simple little device, but it's like you can control the temperature of it, keep it warm, all that kind of stuff. But it like hyper heats it up. It's amazing. I like it.
Now that you brought that up, I was like, my wife has a quesadilla maker somewhere, and I think she's maybe used it 2 or 3 times since we've been married. Yeah. And I started thinking, where's my George Foreman grill? Because those used to be like, I used to use that a ton in college, and I don't think I've used that in, years.
Yeah.
Just absolute years.
They always sound great. I use them once. It's like, yeah, this is amazing. And then it gets put away.
I use that George Foreman a ton over the years, but it just eventually it was like, it became too much of a hassle to pull it out from its place and, Yeah. Anyway.
But otherwise, I'm just kind of chilling for the next week. And I've actually got a company, our monthly meeting, which is typically, first Thursday of the month. This time of year is like a little Christmas meeting kind of thing. And I'm thinking about taking Morgana a half day out of school and actually going down to the office because I haven't even seen it yet. We moved from Sandy to downtown.
Okay.
It's supposedly really swanky. We've got rooftop access with this heated room on one of the taller buildings downtown. Everyone's been bugging me to come check it out and everything. So I'm thinking about surprising everybody for the Christmas meeting. Take Morgana down there and just kind of hang out for the afternoon and actually see the people that I work with face to face.
Right. Huh. Novel concept.
That's weird. So, Grant, if you hear this Thursday morning, hopefully you're at the office because he listens.
Nice.
But that's me.
It's funny that you bring up the, see the people you work with face to face because I just got back from spending a week in Holland, Michigan with my IT team that I work with. And of course, I'm remote. I'm out here in Utah. And so it was good, man. It was a really good opportunity I got to spend a day with my boss. I got to have a lot of meetings and kind of go over some stuff, get some more access to things, do some planning, and then just overall just like meet more people back at the corporate headquarters and whatnot. And it was a lot of fun. Like it was a good time. Like it was time well spent. But of course, like, you always want to get back home when you're on a trip like that. You want to see your kids, you want to be back in your own bed. You want to be comfortable, whatever.
Your own bed, that's a thing, man.
Oh, it is, man. It's like the first night you lay down, you're just like, yes, old friend, I have missed you. At least that's what I say to myself in my head every time. But man, when you've been away from your bed for a week, you're like, ooh, I'm going to get some good sleep tonight. And then, of course, you come home and you find out that your 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old is now got what his brother had while you were gone and what your wife had while you were gone. And you come home to vomiting. I do not do well with people vomiting. I'm very much a sympathetic vomiter. And I go in there and Jackson's, he's starting to walk around. He's starting to pace. And he's like, Daddy, my tummy hurts. I'm like, the bathroom now. And he's like, walks over there and then he burps and dry heaves a little bit. I'm like, And I'm just kind of like covering my face and trying to look away. And he's like, Daddy, stay here. I'm like, buddy, if this starts and the fireworks start popping, we're going to be washing all your clothes because I'm not going to be able to reach over top of you and get to the toilet. So needless to say, right when that started happening, Mom intervened because she knows I just can't. It's just bad. So I came home to find out that my wife and kids had been sick, and then I came home to a sick kid, and Brita had the LASIK this weekend, so I took her to go do that. And so that worked out. Did it
take this time?
Yeah, so they were able to do the LASIK.
Yay!
So, that was an awesome thing. And she says her visions, she went into the doctor today, and she said that, like, if she covered one eye, everything was still a little blurry, but if she was looking at both eyes, they were good. But they're still trying to recover from being a little foggy and a little hazy, and that does take a little while to kind of clean up and go away. But she's feeling comfortable and happy with it, which is cool. It's just So that's all happening and going on, and trying to run some errands as soon as I get back to do things, and of course all the travel and the delays due to all the snow, and then of course we get hit with this massive snowstorm up here that affected like the entire state. It seems like, and I was like, oh, not a big deal. We got a little dusting on Sunday, and then of course this morning when I had to go to work, a ton of snow dropped, and it took me like an hour to get to work, which is 3 times longer than normal. So it just seems like so much has happened, running around, being places. I mean, I was in Atlanta this weekend. I was in Michigan this weekend. I got back home. A lot of stuff going on. And then, of course, I had to kind of put the D&D group on hold for 2 weeks. One because of Thanksgiving, and then one because I was in Michigan traveling for work.
Yep.
And with the time shift and everything, and I had to be up really early for a Friday morning meeting, it just, I just wasn't going to do it. I was like, we got to put this on hold. So I am really looking forward to this week and kind of getting back into the swing of things with the D&D group. But Stu, I'll let you know, last week, I believe it was last week, we talked about some board games that you liked, and I think one of them was it The Haunting on the House Hill? Something. What's the name? It was something like
The Haunting of the House on the Hill or something like that. But there's a legacy version of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was in Target doing some
Betrayal of the House on the Hill. There we go.
Yes, there you go. I was in Target doing some, we'll just say, strategic holiday shopping, and I saw that they had that, and I was like, I think this is the one Stu was talking about, so I flipped it over, was kind of reading the back of the box about how, you can play the game, and then, depending on choices you make in previous play sessions, it can affect later play sessions. I'm like, this is the one. And so, while I did not pick it up, I did see it in store.
Nice.
And I'm very intrigued by this. Here's my problem, though, right now. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I'm laying it out here, super friends. When it comes to board games like this, I get super excited, like I did with Small World, like I have actually with a lot of games, like Secret Hitler. Love that game.
Oh, yeah.
But I find that our group, our kind of group of friends that we used to do stuff with other couples and whatnot and do board games, like that number has like dramatically shrunk. So I've bought board games recently where I'm like, ooh, this will be a lot of fun to play with, people, and then it sits on the shelf because we don't have enough people to play the game.
That's how my old game group actually even came to be. It started at 4, went to 3, but we had that group going for 5 years because it's so impossible to find people on a regular basis, and because we were all playing. Yeah, that lasted 5 years. I feel very grateful about that. But yeah, these days I don't play many games because that sort of went by the wayside. But I'm definitely feeling that itch. But it's a matter of, there's so much more you got to think about for an effective, successful game group. It's not just about, hey, a couple people coming over, and you can have those groups. But when you're playing the more serious groups, I think organization is key. Showing up on time, being able to be there, whatever the cadence is for what you do. The personalities, obviously. Yeah,
I was going to say, knowing your room, like if you want to play a strategy game and like half your group hates strategy games, you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah, that's kind of why it all worked well, is we definitely all kind of really were open-minded towards a lot of different kinds of games, and it was really kind of the perfect storm of people to get together and stuff. But I miss that. But, looking at something selectively for one game is a lot easier. Especially if we're talking about like the Betrayal Legacy or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just, you just have to like that one game and then how it goes and stuff. But I definitely need to have board gaming back in my life. That has been a thing that's been missing. So.
Yeah.
But
I do enjoy a good board game from time to time, and
yeah. So we could work out some logistics to that. I actually have some ideas that I was going to bring up later. So
nice. I'm down for said idea, assuming all the normal things, kids and blah blah blah.
Well, that's why we're going to play at 4 to 6 a.m. every Thursday morning.
Right. Hey, surprisingly, I've got time right then.
Right. So does Brady. I'm like the one who doesn't.
Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell. I just feel like this has been a crazy week with travel for me, and then coming back and doing stuff and trying to get things ready and whatnot, and.
There was a thing that I forgot. This is sort of my thing now. I sort of jogged the memory of the things I forgot. I had mentioned that I got a copy of Overwatch last week with
on the Steam.
The Humble Bundle thing. Right.
Yeah.
So I actually jumped into Overwatch a little bit.
Really?
Played a couple characters. Played against the AI. Did not play against other people.
Okay.
It was more fun than I remembered. Still not enough to make me want to play. There's if I'm going to play something, it's probably going to be WoW, or it's probably going to be. I've started going to like casual puzzle games just to. It winds the brain down, kind of thing.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, I'm not as turned off from it as I was, and I definitely, it's fun, especially for the shorter matches and things like that. So I did jump into Overwatch a little bit. I enjoyed it more than I expected. So.
Nice.
And now I'm playing StarCraft on a regular basis. StarCraft 1.
Oh, not StarCraft 2.
No, I have StarCraft 2, all of it, and I wanted to play through the whole story because there is continuity between StarCraft 1 and 2. There is the StarCraft 1 remastered, not quite as reforged as Warcraft 3, but it's fun enough. So I've been kind of going through like maybe one mission a day kind of thing because they're short. And I don't know. I'd like to see that continue all the way through all of StarCraft 2. So
cool.
I'll keep you up to date.
Before we jump into our usual segment, I wanted to do something new today, just because I saw this and this. I got to get this off my chest. Uh-oh. This just bugs me. So, in a new segment, I'm calling what people are having problems with on the internet today. I'm going to think of a better name for that. But that's what we're going to go with for now. I saw recently on Twitter a let's say outrage, craziness. Every month now, I see an article online. Whether it's on the local news or somewhere else, it's all the things leaving Netflix this month and all the things coming this month on Netflix, which I always kind of find somewhat interesting because it's like, oh, great, we can see what's kind of, coming and going. And sometimes that clarity is nice. It'll remind me things that I want to see before they're gone, or say, ooh, hey, I kind of wanted to look at this, but I never did. And now I know where I can go get it. Apparently, and this is where I'm going to lose it, we're
going to call this Spencer's rant is really what we're going to call this.
Maybe. People are freaking out, and I mean losing their minds, because the TV show Friends is leaving Netflix at the end of December 31st. Come January 1, the show will no longer be available on Netflix. And people are freaking out saying, I only have Netflix for this one show, so I can rewatch it as many times as I want. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, really? You do understand that the Netflix is a business and that they sign contracts and that they're not going to hold on to everything forever. They don't have those kind of rights. It gets more and more expensive to hold on to deals for shows that are popular with places like NBC, CBS, ABC, right?
Well, it was a huge deal when Netflix even acquired Friends, which I'm assuming was a one-year contract, because I believe it was about a year ago that it even was available on Netflix. And
no, it's been there longer than that.
It was. I don't think so.
To the Googles.
To the Googles we go. Either way, it hasn't been very long. No,
I'm going to say
no.
3 years or more. That's my guess.
Oh boy, you're going to be wrong on that.
Now, while you're looking that up, I just want to continue on because this is driving me nuts. And I get this, right? This is super, super first world problems. But I see this, Stu, and it's like, really? People are losing their minds about this.
3 years, son of a gun.
How about that? Maybe I did a little research before my rant began.
Stop researching.
Here's the thing, though. It's like, if you're only getting a service for one show, cancel that service and then find out which service is going to be picking it up, whether that's Amazon Video or whether that's Hulu. Like, it's not that big of a deal, right? If you're going to pay $8 to $10 for one freaking show, why get online? Why go crazy? Just pipe down and, figure out where you're going to go get it and switch. It's not that big of a deal. But instead, we take to the internet and we go crazy. And I'm tired of it. We need a little more peace, we need a little more love, and we need to not collectively lose our minds because we can't see what happens with Ross or Rachel. Will they, won't they? I'm just saying.
Interestingly enough, I just found an article about Friends launching on Netflix on January 1st, 2018.
Yeah, maybe in the UK or Canada or something, because I know it's been in my wife's queue for quite a long time.
I don't know. There's some shenanigans somewhere. But oh yeah, in the UK. There you
go. It's like I was upset by this and I read more into it and got more upset and then I needed to vent it somewhere. And where could I do that?
I don't know. We didn't negotiate extra time for an extra segment, Spencer.
Now that I'm in a murderous rage,
you know what I'm going to rant about? People that don't plan things out and take extra time when you're trying to condense time on the podcast.
Well, I think now that I'm in a murderous rage, we should do the murder.
I'm going to step back. I'm going to put them in the cage with you. And Spencer, what are you doing to that Bothan?
I will bathe in his blood. I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Stu, we're into Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
I don't know, but my shirt's the one that looks like I'm bathed in Bothan blood.
It is a little bespeckled.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? I want you to go first this week. Like we discussed. We planned these things, Spencer.
Man, I was ranting. I don't remember nothing. Okay, so here's something that's cool, Stu. I'm a big fan of when there's something I love, but I feel like it's not really prepared for kids or like not maybe digestible for kids. When I see something like condensed down or what I call like kind of kidified. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking about like when you see like you remember those little golden books, that kids would get? It's like, here's the story of Peter Pan, but it's like in Peter Pan in like 15 little pages. So there's kind of a cool...
I had a couple of those storybooks from things, and I think I know where you're going.
Oh, yeah. So what's kind of cool is I like stuff like that. I like it when things are condensed down and made more palatable for children. There's some new shorts based on Star Wars called The Galaxy of Adventures, and they're basically cut down versions of some of the original films. They use original dialogue from the films, and they're only about like a minute long. And it shows like little kind of vignettes and scenes from the Star Wars movies. These are all out now. They're really good looking. Here's my only thing though. There's one of them that I think is good, but for a kid, it's basically the scene from Rogue One where Darth Vader just, goes all beast mode.
The best 2 minutes of cinema in history.
Yeah, and that's cut down and, made for kids. And I'm like, it's a little murdery. I mean, but I don't know. What's your take on this stuff? Do you like this kind of stuff when you see like a movie or a book that's kind of adapted down so kids can,
interestingly
enough,
into it? Like one of the first books I remember ever having as a kid was when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and it was the Star Wars storybook.
Yeah.
And it was an abridged version of Star Wars that actually had the shortened, script, text, all that kind of stuff, but it had scenes from the movie, interwoven between the pages. Though interestingly enough, it had a couple scenes that didn't make it into the theatrical cut of A New Hope, like Biggs and Luke in the hangar bay. Yeah. That was actually a shot that was in the book that I didn't see until much later with the deleted scenes when it finally came to DVD. So so I had a couple of those things. I had the Star Wars one. And it's funny because I'm sitting here thinking, as you were describing that, when we went to see Ralph Breaks the Internet, I actually gave Morgana a choice on whether she wanted to see the Queen movie or Ralph Breaks the Internet. Because I think she would enjoy the music parts of the movie. I think I don't think she'd be bothered by the adult stuff. I just think she wouldn't be interested at all. It'd be boring and dull. But yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I don't think there's any need to overindulge accuracy of something, for kids' sake, just to kind of get them involved with something. If you can shorten it and get their attention with something, it sparks an interest. Even, I mean, if they like that, then later as they grow up, they're going to know that there's more to it or whatever, or something like that. And
I remember watching the Hobbit cartoon, the 1977 Rankin and Bass cartoon that made, I watched it over at my cousin's. I was probably, 5 or 6. It was probably, like 1984, 1985. I remember watching it at their house, and like I really, really enjoyed that. And it made me, a couple years later, go out and get the book when I could kind of read at that level. And I only got that because I saw the cartoon version, which is obviously kind of cut down and some things edited and changed a little bit, simplified. But I think that's a great way to introduce kids into content and stories that they can then later, expand and read the more grown-up versions.
Ironically, it was their Lord of the Rings that actually kept me away from Lord of the Rings for a while, because their Lord of the Rings adaptations were...
That was not as good.
Oh my gosh. Those were long, drawn-out, weird, abstract...
Yeah.
It was crazy. But yeah, no, overall, I think it's a great idea. So I love the idea of this. Morgana's already like neck deep in Star Wars as it is, so it's not like she needs a condensed version of it.
Right.
But, just to sit there and watch a couple things, like before school, I could watch a couple of those with her and stuff like that. So
cool.
Yeah. So, so if you want to talk about rants, I've kind of got a rant of my own.
Hit it.
And that's Netflix Marvel stuff.
Oh, I'm with you here.
So
I'm feeling it boiling.
We have Iron Fist and
Luke Cage.
Luke Cage. I'm like my blood pressure went up. So they canceled those. They knew they were going to do it. So why didn't they do it all together? Like they're like, we're just going to drop Iron Fist. We're just going to kind of drop Luke Cage. And no mention of anything else, right? Daredevil is going bye-bye.
Yes.
After season 3, which many people who've seen that say it's even better than season 1. Season 1 was my favorite Marvel Netflix thing. I'm still trudging through Iron Fist, unfortunately. It's better. I just really haven't had time. I should do that this week. But yeah, so now Daredevil's going away. Punisher season 2 is another month and a half away before that comes out. Jessica Jones has already been filmed for season 3. So I'm sure they're going to drop those 2. They're just waiting until they've got them out or whatever. I don't know. Why don't they just be transparent? I know this is a Disney cut. I know they're bringing everything over to their Netflix or Disney Plus stuff.
So let me ask you that, okay? So, because this is I think curious to me, right? The others are dropped, right?
Yep.
Do you believe that we're gonna get season 3 of Jessica Jones and season 2 of Punisher, and then shortly after that, they're gonna be the announcements that they're gone?
Yep.
I think that too. So here's my thing: when you cancel a show, typically the actors that are involved go on to do other projects. They want to continue getting paid, so they go act in something else. They go do something else. They direct, they produce, whatever it may be.
Develop their careers.
Yeah, something. But it seemed like these Netflix shows were really popular, and that they've established really good characters and really good actors. So my question is, do you think that the cancellation of these shows is more of we have to do this contractually in order to get out of the Netflix deal, and then we can actually just rehire everyone and continue on with our stories with the same actors and whatnot over on Disney Plus? Do you think it's like legal loophole wrangling type stuff going on?
Netflix as the publisher for those things, I don't know that they would be able to do that. I mean, I'm sure with enough money, anything can happen, and Disney's got the money. I think it's probably more of Disney acquiring the properties back to do their own thing. I don't know that they're going to do the same thing later on. And as far as the contracts, I mean, who knows what's going on in the mind of Disney? Because they're not being very transparent at all with any of this stuff.
No.
And it irks me. It's business. I get business. Business happens, and I know the internet at large is going to rant and rave and pitchforks and torches and everything. But they're going to do that anyway, no matter how you do it. If you're going to pull all the properties, just rip the Band-Aid off. Don't just leave us like 3 weeks in between cancellation announcements between different shows. At this point, everybody knows they're going away, so just say it. Punisher and Jessica Jones are going to be done after this next season 2. There's no reason to keep those now that the Daredevil's gone. So yeah, those are gone, and yeah, the future is uncertain for Jessica Jones and Punisher. We do know that we are getting season 3 of Jessica Jones. We are getting season 2 of Punisher. Fortunately, Punisher was definitely a blowout success on season 1. I'm really eager to see that on season 2, but I think this is going to be the last of it, and I'm not expecting to see anything new.
So what's interesting is I know Disney Plus is going to do a series based on the Scarlet Witch, and now they're maybe saying it may be kind of more Scarlet Witch and Vision, kind of like a, kind of focusing on both of them.
Well, I know.
And so,
who has it that has that Loki series now? Is that just Disney?
That's Disney Plus, the Disney Plus as well.
I thought that was already going on.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. That was announced as one of the things. So like we know that they're going to continue to do Marvel series on their new streaming service. Right. So I just really wondered, it's like, man, like you had these 4 shows plus kind of the tie-over, the tie-in show, The Defenders. It's like, don't you think you could still go on and like, you got a great cast on all these shows. Like, I think they're cast so beautifully,
Yeah,
don't you think
but
the world wants more of them?
Yes, but I think they're so closely tied with Netflix properties and probably Netflix permissions on contracts and everything else. I can't imagine Netflix is too happy about this. I mean, this is definitely a moneymaker for Netflix. Daredevil basically brought in a new era for Netflix entertainment. I mean, we already saw some like House of Cards and things like that, but Daredevil blew it through the roof for them. So
well, and the whole knowing that Marvel was going to be putting out so many shows, right? Yeah. It wasn't just going to be Daredevil. We knew it was also going to be Jessica Jones. We also heard Luke Cage, and then eventually Iron Fist, and then Punisher. We basically got the Punisher because he was so good in the second season of Daredevil.
Right.
That's why that has. I mean, yeah, just. It was great. Now, here's something, though. I'm going to piggyback onto your story with this. So, just recently, one of the Russo brothers was asked at this kind of event. They were kind of showing off some stuff from Infinity War, and they were asking the Russos, what's kind of going on? Was there ever any thought about the Marvel characters from Netflix, showing up, and Daredevil showing up, in Infinity War? Right. And they said that they actually considered putting some of those characters into Infinity War, but they kind of figured that basically it was going to screw up some continuity things in the Netflix series. And then also there were so many people involved in Infinity War and, the soon to be Avengers 4. That it just became too much of a smorgasbord of, characters that trying to find a way to like, introduce, Daredevil or Jessica Jones, into the MCU as far as the movies go, might be a bit of a challenge. So they did consider it. They looked at it heavily, which says to me that they are considering how to cross those properties over. So maybe, Stu, just maybe, we're actually going to get movies or maybe like a Defenders movie or something, and we'll still see these same characters, but we're just not going to get them in a serialized show that's streaming.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I do know when this first came around, and there was a lot of speculation about, tying in the MCU with the Netflix shows, that I was actually excited for the prospect of some crossover, maybe a character from the movie showing up in the shows or vice versa. But in hindsight, I'm really glad that they didn't, because even though they exist in the same universe, that they got to breathe and live on their own.
Yeah.
And that it kind of got to be New York as a section with more depth to it than, the rest of the MCU world at large. So I'm kind of glad it went the way that it did. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows what Disney's got up their behinds about what they're going to do. I'm mad. I'm mad. Mm.
You tell us, Stu. You tell us.
Yeah.
What else do you got?
So I mentioned the whole, speaking of Netflix, and now I'm going to make, I really don't see Netflix as the bad guy here. I think it's Disney. Anyway, moving on. So Minecraft on Netflix. This sort of ties in with what we were talking about with Telltale Games. Going under. They have Minecraft Story Mode, which is of the same vein as Wolf Among Us and The Walking Dead and those kinds of games, where it's kind of an interactive story, but you have some action components to it and everything else. Well, one of the things that they were doing with Telltale for the last couple of weeks that they kept the Skeleton Crew on is they were having them finish the production on the Minecraft Story Mode for Netflix.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot about that.
So it's not as interactive. You don't pick up a controller and move the characters around, but it's basically a choose your own adventure for Netflix. But it works. You can use a controller and you just, make a yes or no decision. You can pick between the character's name is Jesse, nice and ambiguous. And I'm sure if, any of our super friends are named Jesse, then it's purely super manly or womanly and go for that. But anyway.
It's super friendly.
Yeah. But so your first choice is to pick male or female version of Jesse. Then you have some plot questions about making some decisions, and the story actually branches out from those things. And you could play it through twice and have, the overall overarching plot is going to be the same, but the way it gets to it and different things the characters in the show do are affected by your choices. So I let Morgana do that, and I sat and watched her, and we talked about it and stuff, and she actually got to play the Minecraft game on Netflix, the Minecraft story game on Netflix.
Cool. What did she think of it?
She liked it. She was very eager to continue it on. There were, it's the whole first season, which is now the only season, which were 5 episodes. They have 3 of them available now. 2 more, episodes 4 and 5 are going to be here next week. And she's excited to play those. She was excited to tell her mom about it. She was excited to tell her babysitter about it. She had a really good time playing it, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So I like the interactivity of that. I think this is just a step 1 in that direction. But really, it's just a matter of, saving a couple variables, and then when it gets to the decision tree later in the story, reads one of the variables, goes off on that path kind of thing. No big deal. I would love to see where that can go for Netflix, and I would not be surprised 2 years from now if we see an actual dedicated gaming content for Netflix.
Interesting.
Because that's where it starts.
Yeah, it sure does. Side note, completely random. I totally forgot that I wanted to talk about something earlier.
Wait, that's my shtick.
I know, but I'm going to steal it. So... we wrote letters to Santa Claus yesterday.
We did that yesterday too.
Did you?
Sort of forgot.
The funny thing is that Charlie, he told me what he wanted to say, so I kind of wrote it all down on a separate sheet of paper, and then he wrote his own letter. I had to kind of help him, guide him. Okay, the next word is, whatever it was, Mary, so we spell that out, Merry, or whatever. And he wrote it all down, and man, I just super proud of him. It was his first time he'd ever written anything more than maybe like his name or like a few simple words. And he wrote out like 5 or 6 sentences. So
sweet.
Really kind of a proud dad moment. Anyway, small thing. Jumping back into Rebel Intelligence. Sorry. It's been a long day. My mind's all over the place. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something I didn't know if we were going to be able to talk about tonight because I didn't know if it was going to happen in time. But it just did in the nick of time. So that old Captain Marvel trailer hit, the full trailer, so not the teaser we saw earlier. I really liked this trailer, Stu. I know that you were kind of not super impressed by the teaser trailer. It left maybe some to be desired. I love the fact that this thing starts off explaining who the good guys are and who the bad guys are.
In other words, it explains the punching the old lady in the face.
Yes, which they show in greater detail, yes. But what I did like about this... Yeah, what I did like about that, though, is that we're in a place now where Marvel movies are becoming so big, and we know that there is a thing called Marvel fatigue that most humans experience, but not Caleb Albers. And so by kind of laying out some of this now in a trailer, I think it gives them a way to say like, hey, we're going to help you frame your point of reference on these things from the get-go before you even go see the movie, so you don't feel like you need to maybe slog through as much backstory. And I get the feeling that we're going to get backstory in this movie, mostly through some flashbacks, which it kind of hints at in this trailer, which I kind of like because it's not, I'm kind of done with the formula of like, let's have the first act be backstory and the prelude, and then the rest of the movie's the movie.
Well, and it's well done because it's not... It takes it from the character's perspective. we're getting this origin, that she's putting together her own origin.
Yes.
So it lends itself to being a little more natural, I think, in that regard. But yeah.
What did you think? So you've seen now the full trailer compared to the teaser. Where are you at on this thing now?
Well, it solves the problems that I found with the teaser. Like, I mean, the teaser didn't give you anything as far as why is this even happening. Except maybe that we knew we were going to get an explanation of Nick Fury's eye. But but I think it's the cat. The cat has something to do with his eye.
Yeah, it's going to
We
scratch
saw this
his eye
cat
out.
at the end of it. Oh, man. So it does fix some of that. I'll tell you, though, I'm still not really all that excited. I think the trailer was a lot better. I'm going to see it. And when I say excitement, this is a comparative analysis level of excitement. Like, it's like, okay, yep, time to go see the next Marvel movie. And to Caleb's point, I'm not even feeling it so much as fatigue, so much as I'm desensitized to Marvel movies. I think that's a better way to put it. Like, this is not really anything new. It's a new monster with a new version of something that's going on, but it's not really a new thing. It's another superhero. We're going to see it. Yep, it's going to happen this way. Yep. She is the Iron Man replacement. She's nice and cocky. You know, she's going to be that needs to be in the leader role. She's just 100% full of herself, which whether it's accurate to the character or not, definitely fits in with how they want to slide that into the next wave of Avengers.
Something I really like, though, and I don't know why, because it's little. I like the little special effects they kept doing with her hair.
Huh.
Like,
I did notice that. I didn't really think anything of it, but
they showed it 3 or 4 times, I felt like. But kind of, it reminded me of when Hela in Thor Ragnarok kind of slicks her hands back over her hair, and then like the horns kind of come out. Like, it was something just different that we hadn't seen. And so with her kind of like throwing her hair back, and then like all kind of the power kind of look like it's emanating off it, and like her hair kind of like wisps out like it been blown. It was something different that I feel like we haven't seen special effects wise, and I kind of like that. It was just a little something extra.
Nice. I think one thing that I take issue with, though, is the whole approach to heroes, especially superheroes, with the whole amnesia effect that, we found you, and so we built you up better than you were before, and then it's, hides some dark secret a la Wolverine.
Yeah.
And we definitely see that in spades, I think, through this trailer. So I don't know. I'm just, that is fatiguing, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to see. I think it's going to be a good movie. I'm not as excited as I would have been. Like, give me this trailer before I had seen any other MCU movies, and I'm sure it'd be entirely different. So.
Right. Or give you this trailer prior to, like, let's say, Civil War.
Maybe even that, yeah. But it's funny because I guess it's not total desensitization, because I still was really excited for Infinity War, and that paid off in spades. So, and that was, that was.
I rewatched Infinity War last week, by the way.
Did you?
And Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah, I watched them on the airplane.
Nice.
I gotta say, both of those movies hold up really well for different reasons. After not seeing them for a little while.
Yeah, I imagine they would.
Really, really good stuff. I'm excited by this new trailer. I want to see it more than I did after the teaser trailer. It's still not going to be the next Avengers level excitement that I've got. But if there's anything that I've kind of come to believe about Marvel with their movies lately, is that each movie they do, they're going to give me something either I didn't know that I wanted, like in Doctor Strange. Like, that movie was just, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really know that I wanted that thing, and I loved it. And they showed me like something cool that made me really excited. Thor Ragnarok, brought the comedy side to Thor and to Hulk, and that really was needed for me in the MCU.
Well, each of the hero series definitely take a different approach, and it was interesting that Thor Ragnarok actually was a pretty big departure from the first 2 Thor movies in direction.
It was a buddy cop movie,
right? But yeah, I mean, they each have a different feel to themselves. They each serve kind of like a different purpose, a different niche or even genre, like we saw with Winter Soldier being pretty much a spy film, and So I hope that it is something unique. I hope it has its own flavor, but remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. It comes out in March, like right after my birthday when I come back. So we're going to go out for my 40th and celebrate, right? We're going to go watch Captain Marvel?
Nice. We'll call it a celebration, even though it wouldn't matter whether your birthday was there or not.
That's true. Whatever, man. Give me this one, okay?
Krypton will go see Captain Marvel.
There you go.
I'll buy it for you with your own AMC Stubs list.
Nice. All right, Stu. So last week we had a conversation. We were talking about movies that we actually want to see rebooted. In a world where we actually want a reboot, what would we want to see rebooted?
Such a crazy, bizarro universe.
Yeah, because you and I think, are on the approach vector of never reboot anything. Let's have new, creative, original things.
Yep.
But we entertained the idea. We ran with it. We thought it'd be a little fun. We had a good time, and we asked our super friends, what movie, TV show would you want to see rebooted? And we got some answers. And so we're going to go over to the email where we always start. And we have an email from Peter Christensen. He says, "Dear nerds, contrary to Stu's dismissal, I think Willow can and should be rebooted. Let Warwick Davis play High Aldwin, Jason Statham as Mad Mardigan, The Mountain as General Kale, Michelle Pfeiffer as Queen Bavmorda, Jane Seymour as Rozelle, Dolph Lundgren or Ray Stevenson as Eric, and Jessica Chastain as Sorsha. Add in modern effects, a rising star little person as the new Willow, directed by Peter Jackson, returning to film in New Zealand like the original did before it was cool. Maybe you can tell I got a little excited thinking this through. Cheers, Peter Christensen." Now, if you remember a while back ago, Peter Christensen wrote in and told us that Willow was like his Star Wars. Like,
Sure.
that was like his movie. Like, he really, 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 really dug Willow for a long time. And I love the fact that like he brought it here. He's like, I think it needs to be rebooted, and here's who I would cast in the thing. And I just love this through and through. I'm okay. Reboot Willow.
Leave it alone.
Use Peter Christensen's. Listen, George Lucas. I know you're listening, George. And I know you've taken some ideas we've had about Star Wars.
And let's face it, he's probably bored sitting at home now that he has nothing to do.
Yeah, because he's sold off Lucasfilm. Take Peter's idea, run with it. I don't think Peter's going to ask for anything in return. He just wants to see another Willow done. So, George, make that happen, will you? Thanks, pal.
Yeah, we should expect a voicemail from George next week.
I'm sure George could call in. I mean, if Mr. Nodalpats can call in, I'm sure George can.
Maybe Mr. Nodalpats can have a conversation with Mr. Lucas.
Let's go over to Facebook. Speaking of our dear friend Caleb Albers, he says, "Krypton, what? Just what? I know everyone is entitled to their opinions, but you can't touch The Breakfast Club. I'm not even the biggest fan of The Breakfast Club, but I know that movie is an absolute icon. There is no remaking it. You cannot touch movies that are iconic. It would just break the whole movie system. Why not just remake The Goonies or Sandlot or Ferris Bueller's Day Off while you're at it? Personally, any movie that gets remade has to fall under a certain criteria. First off, no icons. Second, for something to be an effective remake, it has to be a movie that would work well if it were released today, but fell short because of technological limitations of the time or because of social statuses of the day. I forget who said it, but whoever came up with the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids made a really good choice. That was me, by the way. It says, with the advances in technology, that would make for a really spectacular film. Probably wouldn't go for Steve Carell, but that's just me. But this criteria really inspired me for what I think would make a good remake today. My first choice is The Running Man. Arguably an Arnold classic. I think the Hunger Games-esque style movies are really appealing to people, and let's just say 2017 was not accurately portrayed in this film. I feel with the advances in special effects and practical effects, this movie could be a really big hit. Yes, you'd have to replace Arnold, but can we all agree his quips and acting were not the best in this? I think we can. My second pick is also an Arnold film, and this is in no way anything against him. It's more something against what they did with a pretty amazing female lead. or at least an amazing potential for a female lead. My pick is Red Sonja. The issue I had with this movie is that it felt like they were wanting a strong woman to be the main lead, but the second a big, strong man came into play, she almost needed him to save her, which, from the books I've read on her, that is not how Red Sonja is supposed to be. She's supposed to be a bad A of all bad A's. Sorry for the language. But I feel if actually done justice and had an amazing actress to portray her with a decent haircut, and take out the not Conan character, Red Sonja could be an icon that every little girl could aspire to be and someone I hope my future daughter could look up to.
To go back to rants for just a moment, there was a time many years ago that I had a pretty big rant about the whole Conan, not Conan character. Anyway.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous.
I thought you were gonna say you had a crush on Red Sonja.
Not really. Not even then.
Yeah, she didn't do it for me either. But I like the idea of the character. So,
yeah.
A few things to address Mr. Caleb Albers. First of all, here's the problem with saying you can't remake things that are icons, okay? The problem is that who defines what an icon movie is? Who says? Because for me, Ghostbusters is an iconic comedic movie. It is, in my opinion, like the gold standard by which comedies should be compared to. And they went and remade that.
And look how that turned out.
I actually haven't seen the movie, so I can't judge it on its merits. I refuse to see it just on the fact that I love the original so much, and I think that it needed to be left alone. Don't redo the characters. Don't try to capitalize on it. But the problem is with the remakes and the reboots, Caleb, is that they do it because they make money. So in a world where Goonies and Sandlot and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, to bring up your examples, are popular movies, if they can reboot a movie, they can keep the same idea, they can keep a lot of the same dialogue, they don't have to work as hard to make a lot of money. That's why we see these reboots and these remakes. So how do you define what's an icon? Who decides that? And then how do you make sure that those things don't get touched? I mean, eventually, everything's going to get remade. It's just a matter of time. I even think they did like a Gone with the Wind remake.
Well, that kind of goes along with the idea. I think it was Tom Sawyer's idea of like every joke has already been told or every song has already been sung, something like that. Or not Tom Sawyer.
No, Tom Sawyer.
The author,
the kid who
the author.
Yeah.
Tom Sawyer.
Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens.
Tom Sawyer said it best. Paint my fence.
The little boy who gets others to whitewash his fence.
I mean, at some point, every story has been told in one way or another, and things end up being reboot or redone, even if they're not even intended. It's just a different version of the same thing, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, everything definitely is up for grabs in the long scheme of things. Or I feel like they should leave everything alone, but reality screams that everything will be remade. So
I will say the idea of the Running Man, right? So here's the thing, and I think Caleb hits it because we're talking about movies now that are like filmed way back when that like portray a future, like Escape from New York. I love that movie.
Man.
Love that movie. But man, if you look at it today, it looks bad. The special effects are bad.
I actually watched that only like about 2 or 3 years ago, and I loved it.
I watched it fairly recently, within the last couple weeks, and the story is a good story, and you could retell that story, with a city that's turned into kind of the prison state in the future, and kind of the way things run and operate. I think you can retell that story, and you can update it, and I think you'd be fine doing that, and I get that. So I think like the Running Man, kind of that same idea, is that you could pick up something like that pretty easy. I think with a lot of sci-fi stuff that portrays the future, that's an easy go-to.
Sure.
The Red Sonja thing, I actually really like the idea of redoing Red Sonja because I remember watching that movie thinking like it looks like it could be really cool, but I also felt like at the time when I watched it when I was young, I also felt like it was really boring.
Yeah.
It just kind of seemed to the pacing just seemed slow to me, and I think Caleb's right with a good female lead. Right now there's a big push in Hollywood for, movies that are starring women, big movies, big epics that are, helmed by women, starring women.
The problem there is
something that could be done well.
The problem there, though, is that we don't have much demand for high fantasy anymore. Not for live action. I mean, that was like the heyday of the 80s, but I would love to see a resurgence in that, especially with today's technology.
Yeah.
But
easily. Going over to Twitter, we got some answers from our super friends as well. Tim Paulin at tpaulin20 says, remake the Star Wars prequels correctly this time. Shots fired, George. I know you heard the other thing about the Willow, but he's not wrong about this either.
We should just have him on the show next week.
Yeah, we'll have to make that happen.
We'll work through all that stuff.
Burn-Excelsior at Dantes_Belmont says, would love to see the conclusion of Pirates of the Dark Waters. A remake of Captain N would be nice. Now with all the new consoles and different technology, things would get very interesting. A new D&D show by the Voltron creators or live action by HBO.
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burnaby.
Let's do it.
Dante's Belmont is with you. Nerdish at dspin67 says, I'm excited for Ultraman. I am so looking forward to this. I watched the original when I was a kid. There was a TV show called Reboot back in the mid-90s. I'd like to see this get remade. Also,
a reboot
Speed
of Reboot?
Racer. A reboot of Reboot?
Meta Reboot.
Reboot Inception? He says, also Speed Racer, someone needs to bring back this show. I mean, all good choices there.
Didn't they have a Speed Racer movie not too long ago? Overall, in the scheme of things? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Someone would have to look that up.
By the holy power of Google.
Also on Twitter.
2008 Speed Racer movie.
Oh, there you go. The Dragon's Lair at Turpin Rich says, Highlander is a great movie in its time. The acting is very bad. You had 3 big names, but it was a typical bad 80s sci-fi / fantasy / adventure film. So yes, I think with the right director, writer, and actors, this could be redone and could be a fantastic film that makes you forget the original.
Whoa. Just whoa.
I don't know that I'd want to forget it, but I gotta say, backflipping down the entire parking garage as a form of transportation. I know we talked about it. But I'm just saying,
awesome.
You could probably do without that. I seriously am not going to forget for quite a while, Brita. Really? This is ridiculous. I heard her say that so many times.
You know, thinking about the whole backflip thing, it just occurs to me the perfect remake-worthy movie, Mortal Kombat.
Oh. Maybe we could just let it die.
I love that you shut your mouth.
Super friends, thank you so much for answering our question. We love interacting with you. You can always get a hold of us at all the usual places, which is our email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com, Facebook, which is facebook.com/fortofnerd, Twitter @fortofnerd, or our voicemail, which is 801-477-7687. Oh, Stu, I just thought of something. We have a voicemail.
We do have a voicemail.
Speaking of the voicemail number. Let's give that a listen before we move on, and then I have to apologize to a super friend later on.
Yeah, there you go.
Good evening, Fortress of Nerditude. Stu, Spencer, how you guys doing? Hope it's good. Stu, putting me out on Front Street, man. I'm going to have to pick my Queen song for you, and I'm not going to cheat. I'm only going to pick one, and I'm going to pick Another One Bites the Dust. I just really love the bass line in that song. There you go, Stu. One pick, one great song. All right, guys, now I'm going to answer the question of the week. Movies that I'd like to see a reboot of, and I got a list here of some good ones and some bad ones. Okay, here I go. Roger Rabbit, Casper, Tank Girl, Flight of the Navigator, Three Ninjas, Enemy Mine, Gremlins, or Critters, Starship Troopers, Never Ending Story, and here's an old one, but a goodie, Suburban Commando. Maybe they could do that with John Cena now. John Cena, blah, 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 whatever. All right, guys. That's it. I'm heading to bed. Y'all have a good night. Else time.
So,
all right, Stu.
Another one bites the dust.
Question.
Hold on. Another one bites the dust. So it's Morgana has actually. So how I know that she's got the Queen hook is it's not just one song. She's actually moving through different favorites. And the last few days, she's been strutting around the house with the whole bass line of Another One Bites the Dust.
Boom,
Do.
boom.
Yeah.
Ba-dum, boom, ba-dum.
So she's even learning all the lyrics. It's awesome. But,
nice.
Isn't Starship Troopers getting a reboot? I thought there was a new one coming out.
I thought I heard that. So let me ask you this. Paul says he's got a list, and he says some good, some bad. From his list, this is just me, so Paul, I apologize. I don't know that I could differentiate what was good and what was bad on that list because most of it was in the bad category for me. There was only one or two that I went, oh yeah, this could be kind of good. Most of it was kind of like, we can let that die, right?
Well, I mean, I would think that's kind of in the category of the things that we would let die are things that are definitely worthy of a reboot to kind of, I don't know, make them worth something, I guess. I don't know. I'm
just saying, Three Ninjas, Suburban Commando, like those kind of movies from like the late 80s, early 90s. I don't think that those are going to be the ones that movie production houses are going to be like, you know what? There was a lot of money to be made with a Hulk Hogan movie back in the day that I think now we could redo, with John Cena or, some other wrestler or, now maybe if The Rock was involved.
Well, that's the thing is John Cena is The Rock now at this point as far as wrestling's concerned. He's, for whatever reason, and I find him to be pretty plain Jane, no offense to anybody, but he's not The Rock. He's not Hulk Hogan. He's got, an outward personality, but that's just that's all wrestlers are like that kind of thing.
Would you go see a Casper reboot?
I did see a Casper reboot, actually. That's been remade a few times already.
Now, Neverending Story, that's one I loved as a child. And so, if they were to redo that, I don't know. Tax, stupid horse! I mean,
I think that actually would be primary grounds for a reboot for Neverending Story.
I think something like that could do well. There's something else he had on his list. I went, oh yeah, that could be...
Roger Rabbit?
No, I love Roger Rabbit. Leave that one alone for me. It was something else. I'll think of it later. But anyway, some of those I was like, yeah. Notably, Suburban Commando. I was just like, oh, no. Three Ninjas. No, we can... I'm hoping those are in his bad category. I don't know. But...
You let Spencer know next week.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. I think you and I are going to fundamentally differ on a few of those. But that is the cool thing, Super Friends, though, about the question of the week. We don't always have to agree on things, and that's the cool thing, is that we can have disagreements. Like Caleb, he thinks Breakfast Club is something you can't touch. I think you totally can.
I kind of agree with him. I mean, I had to dig to explore what would work if we did, but...
I understand.
I feel that one is definitely untouchable. So,
and most John Hughes movies, I feel you wouldn't reboot. Like I just got done watching Home Alone a couple nights ago with Charlie for the first time, and I love Home Alone. I couldn't see Home Alone being rebooted now at this point, even though they made a couple sequels to it. But here we are. I'm okay with a Breakfast Club reboot, and Caleb and Stu are not, but that's all right.
Home Alone is getting reboot though.
Of course it is. Everything is going
by
to.
Ryan Reynolds.
Is Ryan Reynolds going to play the boy that's left behind?
I don't think he's playing the boy, but yeah, they started work on it earlier this year.
Of course.
All
right,
but it's a little different. It's an adult take on the movie. Anyway, moving on.
Stu, let's move on. How can our super friends help us out this week?
By not rebooting our podcast. It's fine.
Ooh.
Leave it alone.
Good call.
We're good where we're at. If we need to be reboot, at least, though, I should be played by Carrie Elways. Who should you be played by?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
All right. We're going to agree to disagree there.
I don't know. I don't know why, but it just, that seems like completely bad, casting on.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Reboot. So,
otherwise, if with that in mind, don't reboot us. You could instead leave us some 5-star ratings on iTunes. Get us some numbers, get us some publicity there, get us on some lists, let people know that we're out there. Also spread the word. When you're talking to some friends, let them know about the podcast. If you got a discussion going on, hey, we had an episode about this or that, let them know. Have them take a listen. Let's get some more super friends. I know we've had some new super friends recently, and we're definitely grateful to have you along. And yeah, just keep spreading the word through 5-star reviews and word of mouth, and do your thing while we do ours.
Well put, Stu. Well put.
Yeah.
All right, so something happened this week that I wanted to talk about briefly, and then maybe we can talk about some greater things that kind of spawn from this. But a little while ago, I recorded a Sidekick podcast with my brother-in-law, Eric Gifford. We talked about the movie First Man. I have a great love of sci-fi. I have a great love, though, specifically of space movies and movies that focus on like the astronauts, space programs, space exploration, that sort of thing. And so First Man was right in my wheelhouse, and Eric knew that, and he says, hey, let's record on this. Great idea. So we recorded this a couple weeks ago, and the idea is I was actually going to put this out yesterday, and I was editing the podcast. Weird. Yeah, I was editing the podcast, and I had a problem. My audio cut out halfway through the conversation. I don't know why. Technical, difficulties do happen from time to time, but usually I catch it or see it happen, and we can, fix it. But this happened a few weeks ago, and so I couldn't go back. And so, unfortunately, we lost that episode. But
the lost episode.
I know, the lost Sidekick episode. But Stu, I really kind of wanted to have a conversation, though, not necessarily about First Man, because you haven't seen the movie, and it would be kind of tough, and I didn't want to try to re-record. Mm-hmm. But I did want to kind of have a more general topic of like, what are some of those movies that kind of fit that criteria, kind of the modern space flight type movies that you enjoy and that I enjoy, and maybe why we enjoy them? Because I think we see a lot of these movies, they tend to crop up every few years. We'll get something new that'll kind of fit into this kind of category. And obviously, America, the world must love them because we keep getting these types of stories. So,
sure.
First Man was a great movie. I would highly recommend going and seeing it if it's still out. It may come back around when the Oscars are nominated.
What is First Man?
So First Man is basically it's a biopic picture based on Neil Armstrong, and it's different than a lot of the typical space flight astronaut-y movies because it's not focused so much on the like how did we get there, but more focused on the actual man himself and the struggles that he was going through, like what personally was going on in his life, what kind of, inner turmoil and drama surrounded him, which is different because usually we get these astronaut movies and it's more about, the thing that happened to them on their space flight or how they got there, as far as, the steps they had to take. But it doesn't necessarily focus on the person as the subject matter of the film. And so First Man was really a really interesting movie. It was really good. I think it's going to be probably nominated for a few Oscars, maybe even Best Picture. So if it does come back to theaters, I would recommend going and seeing it. Like it was a good movie.
Interesting. I might have to check that out because honestly, I never saw anything about it until I knew that you were planning to do the Sidekick, and that really was about the only thing. I've never seen a trailer. I've never seen a poster. Nothing.
I remember seeing one trailer for it quite a while back, but it wasn't pushed a lot. I mean, it's not the kind of movie like you're not going to go and take the whole family out and buy popcorn. It's going to be a little slower. It's going to be more of a character development type of movie. So it just didn't get the push. However, it is going to be probably up in the conversation for some Oscar potential. So Stu, do you have favorites? Do you have movies that you love that kind of fit into this category?
I have a lot of them. I mean, which is actually kind of leads into some disappointment that I didn't hear about this movie because I love space movies and I love science fiction, and I know there are a lot of like Star Trek, Star Wars, things that take place in space. Battlestar Galactica is probably my favorite overall. That's a series, but the new Battlestar just does space so well. But the exploration of space by man in our modern era, like especially around the space race, or things like I know we've got a couple movies that we want to talk about, and I'm sure we'll go over this. And if we don't, then I'll be sure to mention them. But just the idea of what if, and maybe pushing the boundaries of what we've actually done, but still kind of like in a realistic fashion. Like Mars is just right there at our reach. There was a landing on Mars this last week.
Sure was.
Those kinds of things and what that could mean for the human race and what we're going to do with that. Those just really open up real what if kind of thoughts and imagination, because it's, warp drive is like, okay, yeah, hey, that's super cool. That's how they're going to present. Yay. But actually landing on Mars, populating Mars, that's something that we could actually think through. And how could we do that? And
right.
It inspires
a little more achievable.
Right. So it's something we can actually touch. Now, that comes with a grain of salt because, yesterday's science fiction is today's reality in a lot of different things. So just because I think warp drive is out of reach now doesn't mean in 100 years that we're not blasting all over the universe. So who knows?
Cloaking technology was something we've heard about for many, many years, and now that essentially exists.
We could have 30 hours of science fiction inventions. Hypospray, for crying out loud. Just a simple little tool like that introduced in Star Trek is a real thing, and that's much more convenient than needles.
Right, or like the tablets we walk around with now. Were like the data pads from Star Trek.
There you go.
Yep.
So I definitely have some movies that I like. So you want me to go into one?
Yeah, man. Hit me with
Because I'll
one.
go into what I think is there are two big iconic movies that I feel really kind of define the entire space movie, what they should be. The first one is The Right Stuff.
Oh, love it.
The Right Stuff came out at a time when like the ensemble movies were a thing, and we saw Young Guns, and we saw a whole bunch of things where it was in to have multiple big name stars. You can't even afford to do that these days.
Right.
But so you had a lot of great actors in that. And The Right Stuff, basically about the first program to launch humans into space over a couple-year period. And while that was cool enough and in and of itself, what I loved about this movie the most was that it wasn't just them throwing humans into space and showing some scary stuff. It went into the whole global environment of the time. It went into some of the politics that were involved. It went into like the early pilots that washed out from it, pilots that were killed, like what it took to actually get these pilots involved in the first place. It meshed all the armed forces. It talked about it showed, the wives at home and, things that happened in the story that dealt with that while they're watching it at home. And oh my God, it just had so much information and story that was, for the most part, maybe with some theatrical license, was all what really happened. And it's a great historical piece done with some fantastic Hollywood drama with some great actors. I could have my own Sidekick episode about this.
Dude, I would do that with you in a heartbeat. I love The Right Stuff. And so I'm not going to disagree with anything you've said because I think you are on the money with all of your points. For me, there's also one extra added layer to this, is that The Right Stuff was one of my dad's favorite movies. My dad had a list of movies he could watch over and over and over again. The Right Stuff, Twister, Apollo 13, Hunt for Red October. Those were like his movies. Like at any given time, he could watch any of those.
I could watch those movies with your dad for sure.
And so for me, The Right Stuff is like one of those movies that like it just evokes memories of my dad watching this thing. And I don't think that I'd actually sat through and watched the whole movie through until after my dad had passed. And then I was like, man, I love this movie. This is a great movie for all the reasons you just named off. And so for me, that movie is going to hold a special place because it's also the added bonus of, it brings back memories of my father who's no longer with me. And I realized really quickly that my love of space and space exploration, I think really was really instilled inside of me by my dad and helped nurtured by my dad. This is a little silly movie, but there was a movie called Space Camp, and it was about a bunch of kids who actually go to space camp, and somehow they are in the shuttle and it accidentally gets, launched, and they go up in outer space, and these kids at space camp have to figure out like the way to get back down to Earth.
Yeah.
And I remember watching this movie at my friend Andy Barnes's house, and I was like, space camp is a real thing? And that was right around the time when we were learning about something, and I was in 5th grade, and there was actually a possibility of going to space camp in Orlando, Florida. And I remember that I was so excited by this, and my dad got so excited by this, that my dad and my mom found a way to make it work so that I got to take a week off of school, fly by myself. Actually, I went with Andy Barnes, my friend at the time who, had that movie Space Camp on VHS. And we went down to Orlando, Florida together and spent a week in space camp and did that during school. And I didn't have to make up any homework. I just had to come back and report on what I did. And the teacher I had was Mrs. Johnson. She was a big proponent of space and science and, exploring that kind of stuff. And so a little silly movie, trust me, it's not a great movie about the space exploration or anything by that stretch. But that movie tied with, my dad's love of that and everything really helped nurture my love of space and space exploration and stories of astronauts. And so for me, The Right Stuff just is going to hold a special place in my heart.
Interesting little bit of trivia. Alan Shepard made a brief cameo during one of the archival scenes, and Chuck Yeager was the bartender in one of the scenes.
That I did know about Chuck Yeager. I did not know about Alan Shepard, though.
Yep, I remember that about Chuck Yeager a long time ago, and I was like, oh yeah, that's awesome, because Chuck Yeager was probably the only one that I actually knew about before I had seen The Right Stuff, and then of course I learned more after as things went on. But yeah, so yeah, that's probably the big one for me.
Did you feel like when you watched that movie that Chuck Yeager got the shaft, that he didn't get to become an astronaut?
The funny, I think that kind of ties into one of the things about what I loved about the movie is that it had that realistic element of, not everything works out for everybody, which wasn't really something that you see in Hollywood, and getting to learn, that bad things happen to some of these people. And, I don't think he got the shaft so much, but I mean, that's the way that goes. It's everything's got to be perfect. You have to be the right person in 100% the right circumstances, and there's as much luck involved as anything else. But I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbled.
I just kind of thought it was crazy. Other test pilots, military pilots, and whatnot, but yet the man who actually broke the sound barrier, wasn't invited to the program, at least in the movie. But that's cool, man. So do you have some other stuff? I mean, I kind of talked about Space Camp being a little silly thing,
and you kind of gave us a rundown of First Man.
Yep.
So this is kind of where there's definitely some bleed over between reality and sci-fi, and but 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh yeah.
What I loved about that most wasn't necessarily the sci-fi itself, but it really had the feeling of what I believe space travel, especially kind of like intersolar system travel, would be like. And it was dark, and it was lonely, and it was long, and it was boring. And of course, you have the dramatic elements that come into the movie, but like even who was it? The U.S. Library of Congress has elected to preserve it in 1991. They elected to preserve it in the National Film Registry, as it was deemed, quote, culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. That to me just kind of echoes what I loved about it, that it felt like it was just really exploring space, even if it wasn't, necessarily a reality-based story. But it also gave you the heebie-jeebies about what might actually be out there,
Right.
And you've got this monolith, and how do we as a society treat that kind of event? And I think at the time that just really kind of struck a chord with me, and I loved all the later stories that came from that. I read the books from Arthur C. Clarke, because it was not so much guns and lasers and pew pew and go blow up the aliens as what the heck is out there, figure out what's going on. You've got realistic situations, even with some, fictional license to it. Even if it was fiction, it was so believable, so gripping, and kind of frankly terrified the bejesus out of me.
Yeah. I love that movie as well. That also was something my dad watched a number of times, and I remember seeing it kind of through him. What I like about that movie, though, is that it really focuses on kind of the how do humans interact with things that they're unfamiliar with? And how are we going to approach, space travel and, alien encounters and whatnot? And I like that. I like the way that it was treated in that film. I think it's very smart and done very, very well. So I really enjoy that.
And of course, it's got the Kubrick touch, so that helps.
Yeah. And it's got an amazing soundtrack too.
Yes, it does.
I like that pick. Okay, so here's one that I saw. This is a more recent movie, but I like it because it's the whole kind of concept of like something happens, there's a tragedy in space, and we need to show, I don't want to say American ingenuity, although that's kind of what it is, but like the ingenuity of an astronaut to try to, get himself out of a problem or a sticky situation. And that's The Martian. Obviously this is, the Matt Damon film where, he's literally a biologist, which I love the representation of this because we think of astronauts as being like, these guys are pilots and, they're like we said with the right stuff, right? Test pilots or military pilots or whatever. But the reality is he's a biologist who gets, taken up on, a shuttle. They go to Mars, and it's his job to try to see if he can grow anything on Mars and, and run some experiments or whatever. And then due to a mistake and some problems and some inclement weather, he gets stranded.
Inclement weather.
On the red planet.
Bit of an understatement.
And so now he's trapped there, right? And he's got to figure out, okay, how can I survive? And I love that because it kind of fits into this whole idea of, the ingenuity. Like he figures out, okay, well, I can go, and I can go this far per day, doing these things, and I can eventually get to an old piece of equipment that was stationed here years and years and years ago. And I can use that to start transmitting signals back to Earth, and I can teach them how to carry on a conversation, and I can reestablish communications with Earth. Boom, he does that. He knows he's going to run out of food. He figures out a way to freaking grow potatoes on the surface of Mars. He had to use his own feces. Not exactly a great thing to do, but you got to live, man. Man's got to eat, right? I love this movie. I love the whole thing. I love the fact that it's a gripping tale that literally involves a guy by himself most of the movie.
So if you hadn't brought this up, I would have. The Martian, oddly enough, when I saw the previews for The Martian, I really had no interest in seeing this.
Me too.
I was talked into watching it. I was told that I would regret it if I didn't. So give it a shot. I begrudgingly did and walked away with one of my favorite science fiction movies of all time.
Yeah.
The things I love about this movie are that it's just a step out of reach from where we're at now. There was there was nothing that was fantastical about this movie whatsoever.
Right.
And I love the representation of science. And I think my favorite line in the movie was actually when is really on his card that he was holding up science, B word. But the two things that science fiction tends to do that I really dislike are either that it over-explains itself to the point where you have to be a scientist to understand, and it gets pretentious at that point.
Yeah.
When it goes so involved and so detailed. That typically happens with books more than movies, but sometimes it even happens there. Star Trek, the motion picture, I'm looking at you.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Or it's so wonky that it's really fantasy. Star Wars, I'm looking at you as much as I love you. It's not sci-fi, it's fantasy.
Right.
But all the science, whether it was real or not, whether they took any creative license or not, it all appeared believable. It appeared very in-depth, but still easily explainable through the medium of the film. And it was like, it was in-depth. The calculations, everything that you would have to think of that I wouldn't think about being on Mars, like I would have died within day one because I don't know the first thing about what problem I'm really trying to solve. Trying to eat is not just trying to eat. It's, all those things you have to take into consideration. And so that was so well done in that. Matt Damon, not my favorite actor, did remarkable in this movie. I loved it.
Yeah. It's a great movie. I haven't watched it in a little while. I actually want to watch it. Just thinking about it and thinking
I'm going to watch it this week. I really want to watch it. We're going to have a slew of sidekicks or movie clubs about all these movies.
Dude, let's do it. All right, you got something else for me?
Well, another one that wasn't, documentary is still a movie.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I love about the Clark Planetarium in Salt Lake, and I know they do it at different science exhibits throughout the country, not usually planetariums, which really Clark Planetarium is not so much planetarium anymore, but right. They have an IMAX theater there, which is built around the idea of showing science movies. Now they do a lot of theatrical releases, but it used to just be that they would do science type things. There was an undersea one that was in 3D that I loved. But there was Space Station 3D. It was narrated by Tom Cruise. And basically it was all shot at the time when the International Space Station was being put together, when it was originally just the Soviet piece and they were trying to bridge in the US piece. And the US team was actually going up to relieve the Soviet crew and to do the maintenance and all the work there to help put it together there. And it was all shot in 3D, which space in 3D from a camera on the side of a rocket, that was the first time I truly had any remotely close idea of how vast and empty space actually is.
Right.
Only mirrored by recent experiences in VR. And just the humanity of the crews, and there were some things that went wrong, obviously, and them trying to get things together. The beauty, the gorgeousness of seeing this monstrous, building kind of thing out in space, but then also seeing it, seeing a real camera view of Earth from that close. There's just so much I loved about it. I took my older daughter Kate to it. I walked away getting a lot more out of it than she did. She's
right.
I mean, I would love to take Morgana to see this in IMAX. You can actually download this for free, by the way. Most of the science-y documentary IMAX stuff that they did, you can find in one version, perfectly legit somewhere. But this was just like this is a real situation. This is something new. We're building a space station, and this was not science fiction. This is science now at the time. Right. It was just, oh man, I could not. I ended up seeing that 3 times. I went twice later, once with a friend and once by myself. And it just blew me away. I don't like 3D movies much, but that one had to be seen in 3D to appreciate. And IMAX. It was gorgeous.
That's cool. I do like that stuff, and I like that they make that stuff readily available, so you can find that. All right, my last movie, and this is probably going to fall into the category similar to The Martian. Ingenuity of the American astronauts. It kind of falls in kind of with the right stuff a little bit, and definitely with the right stuff because of the connection with my father. I mentioned a little earlier is Apollo 13. Mm-hmm. I love the story of Jim Lovell and the crew of Apollo 13. The one thing I love about this the absolute most, is that we're telling a story of astronauts after Apollo 11 has happened, after Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin have landed on the moon, and these guys are going up. And, there's some questions about whether or not we should be doing this. Like, do we even need to do this now? We've been on the moon, we've conquered the moon, And Lovell was so close because he went up on Apollo 8, and he was the pilot on Apollo 8. And was so close. They went around the moon a couple of times. They just couldn't land. And he dreamed about it, and he dreamed about getting on the moon for the longest time. And he gets there, and he's super close, and then there's a problem. And it's going to stop them from being able to land on the moon because they need to figure out a way to get back home. Because if they were to land on the moon, they would never come home. They would die there. I love these kind of stories because I love seeing that, like, a team come together, because you had the astronauts that were trying to figure out what's going on, right? Then you also had mission control that's trying to figure out, hey, the real problem isn't, getting them home right now. The real problem is they're going to run out of oxygen and they're not going to be able to breathe. So we have to figure out how to fix that issue. And what do we have available? We got some socks. We got a binder. We've got some duct tape. We got
MacGyvered it.
Seriously, how to make a square hole fit a round peg sort of, craziness. And I love that. I love those types of stories, because what's the best thing about this isn't like just made up for the fact to make interesting story. This actually happened. They took real things that actually happened, a real tragedy, and they are able to showcase it and give you that sense of like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. And if something doesn't happen, these guys are all going to die.
This is not the happy ending fantasy movie you're looking to.
No, it's not. And so I love Apollo 13. Apollo 13, like my father, I can rewatch at any given time because it doesn't delve so far deep into the science of it that you'd have to be really technical to understand. It really is a piece that anyone can identify with, being lost somewhere, being trapped, not having what you need. Obviously, being stuck at work and not having what you need isn't exactly the same thing as, being in outer space, but really that was their job. They were stuck at work with stuff they didn't need, and they had to figure out a way to make the best of the situation. And I think those kind of themes resonate with a lot of people, and I think that's why it was such a big, popular movie, because you could identify with it in small ways.
No, I liked it. Everything that you said is on point. The frustration. I mean, that movie was frustrating all the way up through the end, right? I mean, just frustrating situation after frustrating situation. And it just... But it kept you involved and intrigued and just like waiting for the breakthrough or waiting for something good to happen, which didn't always occur. And it just... Like I remember as a kid having my jaw open the whole time, just like couldn't even imagine that kind of situation. So, and great acting, Tom Hanks, that
Kevin Bacon, Bill Pullman, Gary Sinise. I mean, just big star after big star in that thing.
I remember being annoyed by Kevin Bacon, honestly, but but I was annoyed at the time because he was at everything.
Ed Harris.
Yep.
Great actors in that.
So good stuff. No, agreed. I only didn't. Again, that's another one that had to be on the list. If you weren't talking about it, I was. So
Stu, I've got this idea. I think we need to ask 2 questions of the week this week.
Uh-oh.
One.
You're catching me by surprise again. You got a new segment and a second question. What the heck?
The first one is Super Friends. What is your favorite, space movie of kind of like the modern space flight era? Because I'm curious to see what other people like and for what reasons.
So like from the beginning of the space race to near futuristic, like The Martian, that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I mean, we obviously didn't talk about Star Wars, Star Trek, because those are, not really kind of fitting into this kind of the idea. But we want to hear it. And I think, Stu, you got it right. From the beginning of the space race to near future. That's fine. But then the second question is, Super Friends, what movie should Stu and I watch and do a Sidekick podcast on as some of the ones we've talked about tonight? Because I think that would be interesting to see what people want to hear.
I could do a Sidekick of any one of those movies.
I could do on anyone except for Space Station 3D because I haven't seen it.
Well, you would have to see it
and watch it.
Well, like I would have to see First Man if you did. So, except Space Camp. How about that? Except Space Camp.
Yeah. we can nix that one.
I could do. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
I'm totally down. I
really want to do The Martian.
Open.
I want to do like a movie club on The Martian.
We can do that. Remember, we said we could do some movie club rewinds where we do something a little older.
Well, let's see what the Super Friends have to say.
And then we can, do that and do The Martian.
It's our podcast. We'll do what we want.
It's our podcast. We'll cry if we want to, / watch movies we want to. I didn't think that one out all the way.
No, you didn't.
Don't hold me to that. Well, Stu, I think those should be our questions of the week.
Okay,
2.
Fair enough.
Nice.
It's
What's that?
It's getting close to the end of the year, sir.
It is getting close to the end of the year, which means a few things. One, we're going to have a Christmas episode coming up, and we're going to get to talk about Christmassy stuff.
Okay.
So in the past, Steve and I have done 2 Christmas episodes where we had a little competition where we kind of self-judged it ourselves, which was a little weird, but we picked like favorite Christmas movies, songs, whatever. So we'll have to kind of think of a Christmas theme for something and maybe make a little competition or some sort of, back and forth, or maybe just, something Christmassy. And then, of course, end of the year. So we need to come up with our favorite things. It's kind of like Oprah, but Fortress of Nerditude.
Yeah,
what was our favorite
we're not giving away things
year?
To everybody.
Well, we could.
To everybody? A car for you, and a car for you, and a car for you? No, we can't.
Smiles to everyone? Thumbs up?
We'll give thumbs to everybody. A thumb for you, and a thumb for you, and a...
You get a thumb, and you get a thumb.
Yeah, we'll have to work out everything that we want a favorite of, but that's... I can come up with favorites for everything. Nice.
We'll definitely have to do that, and then we'll have to start talking about some Sidekick ideas once we hear back from the Super Friends and a Movie Club Rewind.
There you go.
Well, Super Friends, please let us know your answers, and we will read them next week. All the usual places, our email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/fortofnerd, Twitter @fortofnerd, and the voicemail, which is 801-477-7687, and we're over on Instagram, Fort of Nerd. So you could also answer there if you so chose to do so.
All right.
Stu, once again, always a pleasure. I look forward to Monday nights. I look forward to hanging out here with you, and I'm glad we got to do this.
This was fun. I like this.
I could do this all day long.
Oh, yeah.
However,
except,
work
jobs.
Yeah. Minor issues that need to be worked
Except
around.
I don't for the next 2 weeks.
Super jealous, by the way. Super Friends, thank you for joining us. From all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you.
Always.